So Nintendo's financials recently dropped and the internet has been talking when it comes to various different things with Nintendo's sales. So this goes over the total sales of the Nintendo Switch. This goes over the top 10 best-selling games and some games outside of that as well. So we're going to analyze and take a look at that and go over a major thing when it comes to Nintendo and Super Mario RPG, something that I said before. I made a video on this not too long after Super Mario RPG came out, and the sales numbers started to kind of filter in a little bit. We looked at some of the sales rankings, and I stated that this will completely change what Nintendo thinks about this, and I feel that this will be, now that we have a confirmation in terms of how Super Mario RPG has done. So I think that there's exciting things to look at in the future. But before we get into that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to the video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my vids first. Now let's go ahead and first start off with the big news that the Nintendo Switch kind of smashing people's expectations in its 7th year with their financials. The sales tracking is as of December 31st, 2023. So it's not tracking January sales. It's not tracking up to February sales. It's just all the way through to the end of last year in 2023. The Nintendo Switch is at 139.36 million. So we can pretty much say that the system is at 140 million plus at this point. Now, the most incredible things about this, which I'll put up the top 10 for you guys, so you guys will be able to see that if you're interested in Super Smash Brothers and everything. But I wanted to go over some highlights and then hone in on a couple things that I know you guys are excited about and follow up, like I stated with Super Mario RPG. So Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling Nintendo Switch game. It's at 60.58 million, which is just absolutely insane that anything would sell that much when it comes down to the Nintendo Switch, considering like 40% plus people who even have the system have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's just crazy. Super Mario Bros. Wonder sold 11.96 million units. That was in about 2 months or so. It came out at the end of October, so it goes to December 31st. So 2 months, 11.96 million. That is the fastest selling Super Mario Bros. Game of all time. Modern history, not the pack-in or bundle like with the original Mario or something like that, but it's the fastest selling modern end Mario game of all time, and it's not necessarily slowing down too much because it's still #1 on the eShop, still #1 on Amazon here in the US, still in the top 10, top 15 in pretty much every single region when it comes to Amazon sales, and still in the UK top sales, still in the Japanese top 10 sales. It's pretty much still a top seller everywhere around the world. So it's continuing to do good. And just like I said before, when I had a bunch of people on Twitter, of course, attacking me over my opinion that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is outselling Spider-Man 2. This is the reason why. It's because it has Japan, it has a massive install base, and it's going to be a continued seller without the need of a bundle as well. So that's just what I think about that game. Now, when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of interesting talk with this as well. We'll go over it just a bit. 20.28 million. People are saying, oh, it's not as good as they would have liked or expected, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, 20.28 million in about 7 months or so is incredible, and the fastest selling best start to a Zelda game by a country mile. I think that obviously at the end of the Nintendo Switch life, you're going to see things dip off just a bit with certain big or core games, especially when a game sells 19 million units, or at least Nintendo shipped out their 19 million units in the first month or so. But I do think that as the Switch 2 comes in, and if they do a patch or if they do a Switch 2 version, those sales are going to continue to be steady throughout the life of the next system as well. So I see The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom continuing to sell, and even still, heck, it's still sold hundreds of thousands of copies, and I think that it's going to continue to sell into this year, especially if there's some good or permanent price drops across different retailers and everything. So to me, 20 million in 7 months is not too bad. Not too bad in my opinion, and I think it's going to continue selling down the line, just like how people talked about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, despite all of its faults, it still became the 3rd best-selling Pokemon game of all time, passing up Pokemon Gold and Silver and getting very close to Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think it's just going to be one of those games that consistently sells despite the sales slowing down from the initial rush. So next up, we've got some updates on some games that are kind of older now, with Luigi's Mansion 3 selling 13.98 million, almost 14 million for that game. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, selling 13.17 million. Pikmin 4 doing incredibly well for Pikmin, selling 3.33 million. And Super Mario RPG, which we are going to focus on just a bit more, selling 3.14 million. Now, this is very interesting because Super Mario RPG is a game that if you would have said, hey, the first month or the first track sales, it would be as high as a mainline Final Fantasy game. But this is something that Nintendo has clearly seen at this point. Now, the last track sales for a game like Paper Mario the Origami King is about 3.4 million, and Super Mario RPG did nearly that in a month and a half. The game came out on November 17th, tracked till December 31st. So you have to look at that as this is kind of what people want at this point. I don't see Nintendo kind of going to that non-RPG formula when it comes to a Mario RPG game. This is clearly what people want, and Super Mario RPG is still selling. It's still in the top eShop sales. It's still in the top Amazon sales. It's still there. So I think that this is pretty much the clear indicator. And once again, a follow-up to what I said before when I said that this will completely change Nintendo in terms of how they think about this, because Paper Mario the Origami King, Color Splash, all these different games did not match the rate of sales and what Super Mario RPG is doing. Now, another, I would say, nail in the coffin here for the old thought process when it comes to Paper Mario or Mario RPG games is going to be Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. If that game comes out and blows it out of the water, just like Super Mario RPG did, I think that that's pretty much a 100% guarantee in terms of the direction or style that we're going to see for Paper Mario, for Mario RPG games in the future. Now, this encompasses all of the alternative Mario adventure or RPG games. So that would be stuff like Paper Mario, that would be stuff like Mario and Luigi, all of that, Super Mario RPG, all of it combined. And I think that Nintendo's definitely going to go more in the RPG realm at this point because of what we've seen with Super Mario RPG. Those are surprising sales. Nobody expected it to be 3.14 million. I was anticipating around 1.5 to maybe 2.5 million, somewhere in that range, which would be really good and a faster rate of sales than any other Mario RPG game out there. In comparison, Super Mario RPG originally on the Super Nintendo, that sold about 2.1 something million. So this game has already passed it up. Not a little bit different because that game was not originally released in Europe in certain regions, but I still think that it was interesting to see that it did this well. Many people were surprised that Super Mario RPG did 3.14 million. Obviously, you look at the Super Mario Bros. Movie that's boosting a lot of the Mario games. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario 3D World, and hopefully it continues with Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, Princess Peach Showtime, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. There's still a number of Mario games that are coming out as well, plus Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Now, I do want to get into just a little bit more with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. For those who enjoyed the game, it's interesting because there's some dynamics of people out there on Twitter or other places saying that they're not necessarily too impressed with nearly 12 million units in 2 months for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And I don't understand this logic because it's the fastest selling Mario game of all time in terms of modern times, when you put it to where it's not like necessarily bundled like old school like the Mario NES games or like Super Mario World. But even then, if you compare Super Mario World, I think that did 20 million or so. This did more than half of that in 2 months, and that game was bundled with the Super Nintendo. So Super Mario Bros. Wonder is doing incredible, and the rate of sales are still there. It's still up there when it comes down to it. So this is anything but a rousing success, and I can see Super Mario Bros. Wonder continuing to sell millions upon millions of copies. By the end of the year, it could be at 20 million plus units sold. I think that's very possible. And then onward to 30, onward to however long it's going to get, because I think that this game is going to be around for a number of years. I don't think that there's going to be a brand new 2D Mario game anytime relatively soon, even with the next system upcoming here. I think that Nintendo is going to kind of stick with this, and I think that we could even get a Super Mario Bros. Wonder DLC pack where they make a bunch of difficult, challenging levels, very much like they did with Super Luigi U, and put that together in one package. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe has sold over 17 million units, one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo Switch, and that sold it gradually over time. And I do want to get into just one more thing with this. A lot of Nintendo fans think that Nintendo's games, especially Mario and Zelda, they sell everything that they've sold in like instantly. And that's not necessarily the case. Like with Breath of the Wild, people think, oh, it's 31 million. It's, oh my gosh, it's this and that. It sold it so quick. No, it didn't. It took Breath of the Wild the whole generation to get to that point, and it took them more than 3 years to get to 20 million, where Tears of the Kingdom is at. Same thing goes for New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. It didn't just sell 17 million or 10 million right out of the gate, or whatever the case is. It was time and multiple years that accumulated. So people need to realize that just because something doesn't outsell it right away or right then and there, that doesn't mean in the next 3, 4, 5 years that it's not going to keep selling. And I think that's the pitfall. A lot of content creators and people on Twitter per se, and sometimes in the comment section, don't really understand, or they just don't go back and look. Whereas I tracked New Super Mario Bros. And a lot of these games, Zelda and all that, they did not have the rate of sales. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch install base wasn't as high, but that's what you get when you have a bigger install base. You get faster rate of sales, and then you also maybe get a little bit of tailing off, but you have a bigger base to sell through, so you can continue selling those copies. So that's just my take on that when it comes down to it. I also want to get into this next bit of news. The Nintendo Switch is now the best-selling system of all time in Japan, beating out the Nintendo DS's 32.9 million. The Nintendo Switch sits at 33.34 million units in Japan, and it's broke the best-selling system ever in like record time for the most part. I mean, the DS was there for a long time. It had a pretty long shelf life overall, so the Nintendo Switch doing it at this point is pretty impressive. And I would guess that Nintendo's probably not going to say anything about this. I don't recall them saying anything about that with the Nintendo DS, but they might. But they did put out a press release talking about how they were happy with the different sales numbers. And if you look at their investor meetings and some of the charts and everything, they're pretty happy with the sell-throughs when it comes to their latest games in the past quarter. And just overall in general, Nintendo has over 1.2 billion units when it comes to software sold overall on the Nintendo Switch, by far trouncing anything else that they've done. So yeah, it's just one of those things where Nintendo Switch is just kind of dominating at this point. So one more thing that I did want to get into is the Nintendo Switch and its chances for outselling the PlayStation 2. I'll probably have a more in-depth video looking at all the different analytics with this. So for those who are interested in that, you can check it out. Or of course, I'll probably have live streams talking about it as well. But I posted a simple tweet where I said how it started versus how it's going, and there was a lot of Nintendo Switch will fail videos, and I get it, guys. I hear every single excuse and thing that people are saying, this, that, and that, 3DS, Wii U, Nintendo's stupid, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get all that, and I understand the sentiment, although I do think that it wasn't 100% justified, considering Nintendo did sell around 90 million units or so of the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, and we already knew well before the Nintendo Switch came out that Nintendo was essentially combining their home console and portable R&D, and their games are going to be on one platform. Nintendo announced the next Fire Emblem game for the Nintendo Switch before the Nintendo Switch even launched. Fire Emblem was exclusively on the Nintendo 3DS. So we already knew that all of the 3DS developers were moving over to the Nintendo Switch, and everything was coming to the Nintendo Switch and that platform when it came to the big, new, and exciting games. We knew that Pokemon was going to be coming over. We knew pretty much all of that beforehand. So there wasn't really any reason to exclude the Nintendo 3DS or Nintendo's portable history as a factor into saying how the Nintendo Switch would do. People honed in and focused on the Wii U and decided to ignore the fact that it is also a portable. It's a hybrid. So I don't buy the, oh, well, Wii U did so bad and 3DS only sold half of what the Nintendo DS did. Okay, so what? It was still successful at the end of the day. Heck, the PlayStation 3 only sold half or so of what the PS2 did. I did not hear people saying, oh my God, the PS4 is going to flop because the PS3 didn't do as well as the PS2. Nobody said that. So somehow it's applied to Nintendo in this specific case, but not applied to other places. I guess there's a double standard there, but my point is that that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be successful. Like, it couldn't sell 70, 80, 90, 100 million units, because people were forecasting this to sell way, way, way lower. People were talking about 40 million units. People were talking about 50 million, maybe even lower. People were talking about failing and flopping just like the Wii U. So 13 million units or so for a Nintendo mainline, anything that's been considered somewhat even a portable, that's ridiculous. That's never happened when it's got all of their games on there. So I think really the way that you have to look at it going forward, how the Nintendo Switch could become the best-selling system or best-selling console of all time. It's that if Nintendo continues to support the system with NSO updates and with maybe a game or two there and price drops. If it gets some price drops, if it gets NSO updates, if it gets a few things here and there, I think that it's going to comfortably outsell the PlayStation 2 by 2025 at some point, like GameSpot says here, but I've been saying that it could outsell the PS2 for a couple of years now because of the rate of sales. The rate of sales for the Nintendo Switch are better than the rate of sales for the PlayStation 2, and the fact that Nintendo has a system like with the Switch Lite, right? You can buy multiple versions of it. It's a system that really lends to having multiple ones. Now, the PS2 did have multiple repeat buyers because there was remodels and different types of things that they did as well, slim ones and all that. But at the end of the day, I mean, people saw it as a DVD player at the time too, so people kind of bought multiples of DVD player for the room or for the bedroom or for the living room, whatever the case is, right? So I do think that they share that in terms of there was functionality to have multiple ones in the house, especially at the time the PS2 launched. So for me, I'm looking at it like, yeah, I mean, if you continue to do what you're doing at this point, Nintendo's forecasting that they're still going to be selling the Nintendo Switch in terms of their main business for most of 2024, not all of 2024. I think the exact quote is that Nintendo's president Shuntaro Furukawa said that the current Switch will be Nintendo's main business in 2024. So if they have the Nintendo Switch to where it's the prominent system, the primary system, till let's just say November of this year, because the next Switch is launching at that point, then yeah, it's still their main business and they're still making millions upon millions of dollars. So of course they would say that. And he refused to comment on the Nintendo Switch 2 stuff. So I feel that Nintendo's obviously going to write out the Nintendo Switch here at this point and continue to support it even after the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out. We saw that with the PS2 after the PS3. We saw that with the DS after the 3DS. We've seen it before with Nintendo and with other systems, especially with systems that sell so well. So I think that's what's going to happen here. We are going to see Nintendo launch the next system at the end of this year or so. And the current Switch could get some price drops and help push it over the PlayStation 2 in 2025 or so at some point. And I would say at the latest 2026. But what are your thoughts overall, guys? I know this was a ton of information. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell. We will see you for the next one. Check out my other videos right here on screen as well. All right, guys, take it easy. Peace.